Mark Daniels. Hello, sir.
Hey guys, good morning.
Hey, Mark.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Uh, all right. How bad was the joint practice yesterday? We're hearing all different things. What was your take? What did you walk away with?
Yeah, it was bad. Some of the worst I've seen, I guess. I was disappointing. Drake May starts off, 10 to 10, but that included one 7-on-7 period and one 11-on-11 period. Jacoby Brissett was 10 of 11. So my first reaction was, wow, the offense isn't as bad as I thought they were. And really, it was. And the wheels just absolutely came off. I mean, Drake May was sacked 6 times on his last 9 dropbacks.
Oh, God.
It was that bad. Like even Jacoby Brissett's 2 minute drill, he got to the 8 yard line, but it ended for, 3 incompletions and a sack, and it just was like, oh, guys aren't getting open. The offensive line isn't pass protecting, but it wasn't like it was bad, but not horrible. And I'm talking like the first team offense. The
Okay.
second team offense, it was truly, truly awful, putrid, some of the worst I've seen in a joint practice. I mean, it was 4 snaps in his Drake's 2 minute drill, and he got sacked 3 times, including on third and fourth down. Guys, so bad. I just like, I should come up with more examples, but like, just trust me on this. It was really, really bad, and I'm concerned about, was it tomorrow night with Drake May? And I would argue the Patriots should play him against the starting offensive line because right now the backup offensive line is just terrible.
All right. Let me, because sacks come in different ways.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson got sacked all the time, and his offensive line used to be furious because they'd be like, it's not our fault. Were these Drake May holding on to the ball too long, or were these just, Donniebrooks that he couldn't get away from?
Yeah, he was running for his life almost as soon as the ball was snapped. And like what he was like, since he has a red jersey on and they can't tackle him, he was just trying to run, out the pocket. But there were referees there who were sort of like marking where he was sacked, but he had just no chance. And it was, I guess, it's sort of a combination, two guys of like the Patriots don't have guys who are getting open that quickly, and that's bad when your offensive line can't pass protect for long. So really just a recipe for disaster to end that joint practice against a really talented Eagles team. And even looking at the Eagles roster, I'm like, wow, this team is just really loaded compared to what we see on the Patriots roster. And at the end of practice, it was just very evident, sort of like where one franchise is and where the other is.
I've heard arguments all week. Scott Zolak's been at the front of this. You can't get better as a quarterback unless you play. But do you think Drake May is safe behind the first team offensive line? Is he safe enough to play him extended snaps tomorrow night?
Yeah, if it's the first team offensive line and and your two best guys are David Andrews and Mike Uwenu, I'd feel way more comfortable. And it's, I'll be honest, it's disappointing for a couple of reasons because it wasn't like Elliott Wolf didn't do anything this offseason. I mean, he brought in Chuk Okorafor, who really the tackle market was kind of bad. I mean, honestly, they also wanted Mike Uwenu to be tackle, and that's not happening, which is sort of another storyline here. But then they drafted, Caden Wallace in the third round and a tackle, and then a guard, Layden Robinson, in the fourth round. Now, Wallace and Robinson, their 2 draft picks, are in the second team offensive line with 3 other guys who have started NFL games: Nick Leverett, Michael Jordan, and Calvin Anderson. So, like, on paper, that shouldn't be bad for a second team offensive line. 3 veterans and 2 draft picks, but it's so bad that I think he would be safe with the first team just because they've clearly been better.
Yeah, it seems like David Andrews was alluding to, some of the issues that they're dealing with and how they're gonna, fix things going forward. But it's this slippery slope you go down if you're talking about being able to protect your quarterback. You start thinking about, well, who's going to be. We think we all know who's going to be the starters, but who's going to be the backup, and how are you going to facilitate this should something happen? The offensive line isn't able to protect them against good pass rushes and good defense because, just because someone is in there as backup doesn't mean they won't be called into service much earlier than anticipated, and that's where things get really dicey.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me to think too. Like the last 2 years, the Patriots offensive line has given up a lot of sacks. I believe the last 2 years was around like 40 sacks in 2023 and 2022, and I think the clear and obvious issue was tackle, which is why Mike Uwenu was moved sort of reluctantly by Bill Belichick last fall, and I thought that solved some issues. And like I guess we haven't talked to Elliot Wolf since April, and he hasn't talked since appearing on like a podcast in May. But he even said like, "Oh, we signed what we thought was the best tackle in free agency in Mike Uwenu," and I'd love to talk to him again and be like, "All right, so you had what you thought was the best free agent tackle. Why did you change that to all of a sudden it's Chuk Okorafor, who was benched last year in Pittsburgh, and Vidarian Lowe, who was a backup last year? Like it's just not a great place to be in. And it just seems like what the offense's Achilles heel was, like truly, like pass protection is the same thing this year. And then there's obviously time for them to play better and prove me wrong, but I think it's a major concern. And really it also points to, yeah, you need to start Jacoby Brissett this year and get that right before you start Drake May.
Ultimately, Mark, that putting the offense aside, I'm looking for positives here. The defense specifically, I'm wondering how A.J. Brown and Christian Gonzalez, that matchup looked, because A.J. Brown had a lot of positive things to say about Gonzalez after the practice was over.
Every time I looked over to the defensive side of the field, A.J. Brown, it was like he was catching something. I mean, the Patriots really didn't slow him down, honestly. Now, Jabril Pepper said after practice, well, if he caught those balls, I hit pretty hard, and maybe we could jar a couple loose. But I thought in one-on-ones, like Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown really took it to Christian Gonzalez. They beat him 3 out of 4 times.
That's really bad news.
I had Christian 1 out of 4.
He's supposed because Christian Gonzalez is supposed to be.
He's supposed to be far and away their best guy.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the future. Oh boy.
Oh man.
Mike Pellegrino, the cornerback coach, said, I don't put a lot of stock in the one-on-one, and he said it favors the receivers, and maybe it does, but I'll say, like, as someone who watched Stephon Gilmore and Darrelle Revis, like, those guys didn't want to get beat in any situation in practice, and I just wonder if Christian Gonzalez is wired a little differently, So maybe he turns it on. I know Karen Gregan, my colleague, wrote this the other day that he hasn't had the best camp, and it has been a little disappointing the amount of catches he's given up, even in team drills against his own teammates and Jacoby Brissett. So yeah, I mean the Patriots need him to really turn it on. Like right now, Jonathan Jones, the number 2 cornerback, is injured, and their second cornerback has been like Marco Wilson or Alex Austin. So there's some question marks there on defense.
Okay, I want to stick with this Christian Gonzalez thing because this is the first I'm hearing about it, which is why we have guys like Mark Daniels on that are there at camp. All right, so Christian Gonzalez is, first round pick, was playing very well his rookie year by all accounts, then got hurt. Mm-hmm. Now he's back. Now the book on Christian Gonzalez about why he lasted as long as he did in the first round was that he was not a fan of contact. We saw that like in a game, but it was nitpicking. It was one play where he was kind of like chucked out of bounds. And now you're saying that you've seen Stephon Gilmore, who's a borderline Hall of Famer, Darrelle Revis, who is a Hall of Famer. Darrelle Revis might be best cornerback of all time for when he was in his prime. You've seen those guys play, and you see something different. He doesn't have that like alpha thing. He's not. Does it go along in your mind with that lack of physicality? Kind of talk a little bit more about Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if he, in like the one-on-one drills, sometimes it seems like he lets up, or like he just, I don't want to say the word like gives up, but like sometimes I'm like, did he give up on that rep? Is he putting in maximum effort, on this practice play? And it's tough because like there was one day at one-on-ones this week, I want to say he went 0 for 3, and listen, he's losing the guys in the Patriots receivers. I think it was like Jalen Polk and Jalen Reagor and Javon Baker. And I'm like, what's going on with Christian Gonzalez? Is this the thing where he like doesn't turn it completely on until Sundays? Because he's given up a lot of catches, and a lot of touchdowns, and the Patriots don't have a number 1 receiver. And his job this year will be to cover number 1 receivers. And I do think it's been an underrated storyline this year is that, hey, Christian Gonzalez doesn't look like a world beater right now. And he looks different than he did the first 4 games last year, which again goes back to wonder, like, is it in this sort of mindset approach? Because one of the knocks on him coming out of college was, yeah, he doesn't always look like he has that alpha mentality. What was it, like Mike Tomlin and the Steelers? They didn't think he would give, he was like an alpha, basically. I forget the quote or the report out there about him, but I'm like, I kind of see that in practice. So, yeah, some doom and gloom here, guys, but there have been some positives. Like,
Where? Where
So
it's been we've got nothing but, and this is not you. It just seems that the news is all bad. I'm just wondering how much has the last couple of days or the last week altered your outlook of the team? They go to camp, you say, okay, maybe they're a 6-win team, whatever. How much has your outlook for the team changed in the last week?
It's changed a couple wins. I thought 6 wins, 7 if they're lucky, and I'm back down to 4 again. I'm not seeing it right now between their pass catchers and offensive line, and even some of the injuries on defense. I'm like, I don't know if they're going to win more than 4 games, and I think this is truly a massive rebuild, and they're slow playing it. Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo said they're a draft and develop team. Well, guys, you better hope that Jalen Polk, Drake May, Caden Wallace, Layden Robinson, and Javon Baker hit, because their path to relevancy is really in Drake May and Jalen Polk. But if I was to give you one giant positive, I think Jalen Polk's legit. He's been really consistent, really good. I'm a nerd who adds up stats in training camp, and through like 13 days of camp, Jalen Polk had the most catches in team drills, and he doesn't make mistakes. He gets open. He's reliable in the red zone. I want to say, like, I've been trying to think of like who's the best rookie receiver I've seen in camp, and I think last year it was probably like Demario Douglas. Like, he's very clearly had it, and I think Jalen Polk's right up there, with how good he is. So I'd say one of my giant positives right now is I think Jalen Polk is a hit in the second round, and Patriots better hope that Drake May is too if they want to turn this thing around.
Okay, I just very briefly, Mayo put the word out that any starter who gets in the fight, they're going to play in the preseason game. Any non-starter, they're not going to play. You saw the fight yesterday. Did you readily identify anybody who's going to be held accountable for that?
Yeah, that'll be interesting because Josh Uche was right in the middle of it. It was this special teams drill where like Raekwon McMillan popped the kickoff returner for the Eagles, and the Eagles were mad and they were like screaming across the sideline. They were going to do the same thing. Next rep, Josh Uche gets hit, gets down, and then he gets hit late. And when he got hit late, he immediately popped up and like went after the guy. So hey, if Josh Uche is out there for all 4 quarters, we know Gerard Mayo will be a man of his word, but since he did get hit late, I don't know. Is that self-defense? Well, we'll see. We'll see how Coach Mayo approaches that one.
Well, it's a good precedent to set, to start publicly saying things and then immediately not doing that.
I still think it's funny that the punishment is now you have to play football. They did it to LeGarrette Blount, and who was the other running back that got in trouble with him in Pittsburgh when they got caught I don't know, in possession. I can't remember who, but that was their punishment. Now you guys got to play all 4 quarters of preseason game number 3 or 4 at the time. I'm like, it's an odd thing.
LeGarrette Blount got in trouble. Mark Daniels, very good. Thank you so much. Read all about his experience with the Patriots at masslive.com. Mark, we appreciate it.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.